Hey guys, tonight we dive into the divine drama of a goddess who got bored out of her skull and decided to invent cheating. Imagine the Parthenon at high noon, marble gleaming like teeth, and Athena herself slumped on a throne, chin in hand. You know, that soul-crushing tedium of scrolling through empty streaming cues. Multiply that by eternity. Turns out even wisdom deities get the itch. You'll survive this story, probably, but your trust in board games might not. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and current time. We've got listeners from Kyoto to Reykjavik tonight, and I want to feel that global insomnia solidarity. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in an olive grove so old. Its roots remember when Crete was just a party island for minotaurs. Athena paces between twisted trunks, her sandals crunching dry leaves with the rhythm of a restless metronome. Olympian feasts blur together. Nectar tastes like moonlight, reheated 13 times. Ambrosia's just celestial spam. Historians agree olive trees were sacred in ancient Greece. What they don't mention is how gods treated them like divine boredom putty. She snaps off a branch. The wood's still green, weeping sap that smells like a thunderstorm's unfinished business. You'd think a goddess of strategy would knit or something, but no. Her dagger carves 6 uneven cubes, flecks of gold glinting where blade meets grain. Some fringe mycologists claim olive wood a BSORBS Chinese letter, like a sponge. But that's another story. Rules, she mutters, stabbing a 1 into the first die. Everything's got rules. The owl on her shoulder hoots, eyeing the notches. Above you, stars twist into shapes that make Freud scribble furious notes. Athena's not just carving dice, she's encoding loopholes. Faint symbols flare on each face. A winking eye here, a sideways hourglass there. Modern archaeologists found similar marks on 3,000-year-old knucklebones near Corinth. Juries still out on whether they're game pieces or ancient cheat codes. Her fingers cramp. 1 cube rolls into a patch of sagebrush, scattering terrified aphids. You catch a whisper, half prayer, half punchline as she fishes it out. Who needs prophecies when you've got creative statistics? The owl sneezes. Wind sweeps through the grove, carrying salt from distant wars, and the shrill laugh of a muse who's had too much lyre juice. Athena squints at her lopsided creations. Maybe she imagines Hermes' smirk when he loses. Maybe she's wondering if oak would been showier. All you know is that soft clatter of wood on stone, the sound of someone sharpening chance into a weapon. A cicada lands on the 6 face, antennae quivering. Athena flicks it away. Ethically dubious, she admits, blowing sawdust off the final die. Then, softer, ethics are for losers who can't count. Somewhere far off, Dionysus vomits rainbow ichor into a rose bush. The moon climbs higher, a chewed-up fingernail. You smell ozone before you see the first crackle of godlight around her hands. The dice shiver, edges softening like wax. When she rolls them now, they land with a sigh, not a thud. Historians still argue whether those original pieces survived, or if some clever archivist swapped them for fakes during the Renaissance. I'm just saying, ever twisted an ankle on cobblestones that felt suspiciously cube-shaped? Athena leans back, moonlight etching shadows under her eyes. The grove holds its breath. Somewhere between her third yawn and the owl's fourth stolen fig, it happens. Divine mischief, cooked slow and patient as rot. Stars flicker out one by one, not hiding, just tactfully looking away. The first roll is always practice. You know this. She knows this. But when those dice tumble across flat rock, trailing sparks, even Hephaestus would envy. Let's just say House Odds just got a new landlord. You round a bend in the olive grove, the air thick with crushed time and divine boredom. Athena's sitting cross-legged under the mother tree, rolling 6 lumpy dice across a sun-warmed stone. You'd mistake them for olives, if not for the way they clatter, too sharp, too hungry. Her fingers still smell of sacred sap, the knife at her belt crusted with golden wood shavings. Rules are simple, she announces to the empty grove. But gods have sharper ears than mortals. Hermes materializes mid-stride, his sandal straps unraveling just enough to look casual. Apollo arrives slower, all golden swagger and lyre music that keeps syncing with the dice's rhythm. You remember that ancient Greeks used olive wood for sacred objects, temple doors, victory wreaths, the occasional world-shaping cheating tool. Athena doesn't look up. 5 throws. Highest some claims dominion over. Let's say inventive warfare strategies this century. Hermes snorts. Inventive warfare's his mother's department. But the glint in Apollo's eyes says everything. You've seen that look before, tourists, eyeing carnival ring-toss games, philosophers debating free honey cakes. The first rule of divine gambling: always bet on arrogance. Apollo snaps his fingers. His golden dice appear perfect cubes engraved with tiny sunbursts. Hermes pulls snake-eyed ivory ones from, well, somewhere you politely don't inspect. Athena just nudges her knobby olive-wood set. Mine stay, she says, smiling like a scribe who's just invented margins. They argue. You smell the ozone crackle of godly pride. Apollo insisting his solar math can't lose. Hermes haggling over stake percentages, while discreetly scanning Athena's sleeves. Their laughter pings off the hills like June cicadas, too loud, too bright. Mortals invented amphitheaters, but Olympus. Best dramas, always unscripted. Historians still argue whether the first dice games were solemn rituals or pure mischief. Tonight, let's just say Athena's already winning both. When the first throws land, her dice wobble weirdly like they're falling through molasses. Hermes' left eyebrow twitches. Apollo's too busy composing an ode to his own opening roll of 12. Here's a fun fact your history professor skipped. The oldest loaded dice weren't weighted with lead. Nope, a 4th century merchant in Cyprus got creative with fig resin and bee vomit. Athena's methods more metaphysical. Those grooves you noticed in the olive wood, each one's carved exactly 11 degrees off true. A geometry only owls and cheaters memorize. Apollo's second throw goes musical, each clack syncing with his lyre's Dorian mode. Hermes starts counting clouds instead of pips. You're pretty sure normal dice don't emit faint hooting noises. But hey, divine game night regulations are famously flexible. The breeze shifts. Olive leaves whisper secrets in a dialect even Zeus struggles to parse. Athena leans back against the sacred trunk, her shoulder blades pressing into bark older than empires. You feel it too, don't you? That prickle down your spine when the air gets too still. When shadows stretch just a hair too long, trickster gods rarely stay tricked. Hermes suddenly produces a wine jug, ambrosia vintage, glowing faintly purple. To sweeten the stakes, his pour misses Apollo's cup entirely, drenching Athena's dice in liquid moonlight. She freezes, you freeze. 3 glowing cubes dry instantly. But now, their once jagged edges look suspiciously rounded. Apollo's too busy tuning his lyre to F sharp. Hermes, he's studying a ladybug on his thumb, innocence radiating louder than Hephaestus. Forge, Athena merely smiles, scooping up her now slippery dice. Shall we continue? The words hang like overripe fruit, heavy, sweet, and ready to burst. Above you, an owl swoops low. Its shadow briefly coats the gaming stone. When it lifts, Athena's leftmost die has somehow rolled flush against a crack in the rock. A crack that definitely wasn't there 3 throws ago. The grove holds its breath. Somewhere in the mortal realm below, 17 farmers glance up at the suddenly silent night sky. 3 philosophers start writing treatises about ethical gameplay, and you lean closer, catching the faintest smirk on wisdom's lips as she slides her next throw. You trace your fingertips over the olive wood dice, still warm from Athena's touch, each face smoother than a politician's promise. Moonlight pools in the grooves she carved with that dagger that's definitely not compensating for anything. Up close, you spot markings that weren't there before, tiny spirals swirling like cream stirred into midnight coffee. The owl hoots. You jump. Athena's too busy murmuring to notice you, her lips brushing the dice like they're temple relics. Every whispered word makes the olive wood tremble. Histories full of loaded dice. Romans weighted theirs with lead pellets. And there's that bronze Greek die in the British Museum with the drilled out 2 spot. But this cheating's got flair. She presses her thumb into a 6-sided spiral until it glows faintly, the scent of burning time pricking your nose. You half expect Zeus to thunderbolt her mid-swindle, but the sky stays quiet. Coward, wisdom requires flexible tools, she tells the owl perched on her shoulder. Its eyes reflect the dice like twin full moons. When it nibbles her earlobe, she swats it away, but not before you spot feathers drifting down to cloak the gaming board. The carvings aren't just decorations. That triple loop symbol, same one archaeologists found on 7th century BCE oracle bones near Delphi. The zigzags match a drinking cup from Crete that's displayed behind 3 inches of museum glass, though curators still argue whether it's board game notation or ancient Sudoku. Athena cups the dice between palms calloused from spear training, or maybe from counting all those trophies in her resume. 6 sides for 6 layers of destiny, she announces to nobody. The owl sneezes. You lean closer. Each pip's actually a miniature owl face, which feels like overkill. 1 yawns. 2 blink sleepily. 6 gives you the stink eye like you just tracked mud on its temple floors. Something clinks beneath the soil. Not roots, metal. Bronze glints where Athena's knee pressed into the dirt. Revealing are those knucklebones. The real ones, actual sheep ankle bones, ancient Greeks used for games. Modern scholars call them astragali. But you've seen enough museum plaques to know it's just fancy talk for chewed up Barbie shoes. She kicks dirt over the bones. Distractions, she mutters. The dice shiver in response, aligning their owl pips northward. A warm breeze sweeps through the grove, carrying not just the smell of ripening olives, but something sharper. Lemon zest. Vengeance. Her pinky finger draws invisible lines between the dice. Where they intersect, the air shimmers like heat over Athenian cobblestones. Remember those UV active dice from Vegas magic shops. These make those look like kindergarten crayons. Each carved sigil drinks moonlight, spitting it back, warped into probabilities. The owl spreads its wings, a living shadow that curls around Athena's wrists. Feathers brush the dice, etching symbols only visible when you blink. You rub your eyes. 6 becomes 3. 3 becomes 9. Basic math flees the scene. Fair is foul when fools prize gold over wit, she recites, channeling Shakespeare 15 centuries early. 1 die tilts upright on its own. No hands, no strings. You've seen enough horror movies to know where this is going. Beneath your sandal, the ground thrums like a plucked lyre string. Some say the original Olympic gods played dice with human kneecaps as tokens. Others insist their games shaped, whether patterns. Apollo's sunstruck rolls brought droughts, while Poseidon's splashes birthed monsoons. Athena's grin suggests worse stakes. She licks her thumb, sticky with stolen ambrosia, and rubs it over the 5-pip owl. Its eyes flush molten gold. Chefs glaze hams this way. You make a mental note to decline any Olympian dinner invites. The wind stills. So does the owl. Athena arranges the dice in a perfect square, their glow fading to innocent woodgrain. Let them think it's chance, she tells the shadows. Fate's just statistics with a permadress. Your throat's drier than Hades' humor. Somewhere beyond the grove, Hermes laughs, the sound jingling like misplaced drachma coins. Athena pockets the dice, and strides toward mischief, leaving you alone with oil-slick moonlight and 6 suspicious owl faces winking from the dirt. One whispers. You pretend not to hear. You step into amber dust, swirling around Apollo's sandals, the air thick with crushed sage and overripe pride. His fingers hover over the dice, gold leaf flaking onto olive wood carved to mimic pomegranate seeds. A lyre string plucks itself somewhere in his throat. That's Apollo for you, god of music, healers. And not noticing when his sister literally reshapes the game board. The dice click like castanets. As he rolls, you catch the scent of Delphic laurel, the kind they used to burn while whispering questions to the Pythia. Historians still argue whether those priestesses hallucinated prophecies from methane leaks or just really good fermented honey. Either way, Apollo's too busy grinning at his first win to notice Athena oiling her next move. 7, he declares, though you swear the pips add up to 9. His sun chariot glow brightens, classic godly tell for I'm about to lose spectacularly. Athena leans back on a stone bench worn smooth by centuries of divine backside. Have you heard they found a bench just like this near the temple of Apollo, inscribed with "Eat feta here" in ancient Greek? The mundane persists. Moonlight licks one die differently your eyes catch, a slight convex warp on the 6 face. Athena's sacred grove, olive oil, my foot, more like sacred cheating grease. Apollo struts around the clearing, composing a victory hymn mid-sentence. Behold the harmony of chance and skill. The second roll dances dice bouncing off tree roots grown suspiciously knucklebone shaped. They land in a patch of clover that definitely wasn't their last round. Athena's sandal taps the earth once soft as a spider testing its web. Another 7. Her voice drips mock awe like you'd compliment a toddler stacking blocks. Apollo misses the sarcasm, too busy admiring how his curls reflect in the dice. You half expect him to pull out a bronze selfie mirror, alas. He just adjusts his wreath. Watch closely, there's the flicker. As Apollo reaches for the dice a 3rd time, Athena exhales toward the grove. A night breeze curls around his wrist, gentle as a pickpocket's touch, steering the bones toward a slope in the dirt. Even Hermes would miss this sleight of ground. The 3rd roll spirals. One die snags on a thorn disguised as a twig, lands cocked against a pebble. Apollo squints. 3 and 4. His lyre hums a minor chord. Athena's owl hoots once. Your spine tingles knowing owls didn't exist until she invented them for situations exactly like this. The game continues. She's already palming the skewed die, olive wood, memorizing the warmth of her cheating grip, as Apollo launches into a lecture about cosmic balance. Bless him, dudes never noticed the balance in his temples. All face east for better sunrise Instagram, or ancient equivalent. You almost feel bad when his victory speech wraps. Athena's quiet 12 slaps the grin off his face. The dice nestle against a root, unblinking. Apollo prods them with his bow tip, still, stingingly, not a 7 in sight. His golden aura dims to lemon peel yellow. Impossible, he mutters. But the game, like democracy and bad reality TV, marches on. Athena offers a consoling bunch of grapes, plump ones, because even cheaters know not to skimp on snacks. The moon climbs higher, somewhere far below Olympus. The first human gambler feels an inexplicable urge to blame the gods for his bad luck. You smile. Some traditions start early. You step into Hermes' sandals, the air, thick with olive pollen and sun-warmed marble. His fingers drum restlessly against the messenger's staff, that iconic snake-entwined rod mortals later confused with medical symbols. Historians still argue whether the caduceus truly held power or just looked good in mosaics. Your divine eyes sweep the gaming grove, Apollo's lyre, propped against a tree, like a forgotten gym bag, Athena's dice, glinting too brightly in the twilight. A raspy chuckle escapes your throat. Clean game, sister. You stoop to inspect the scattered dice, carved from wood older than Atlantis. The faintest shimmer clings to their edges, the kind of telltale glint you'd spot on a mortal con artist, hawking authentic minotaur horns. Your nostrils flare, no trace of ambrosia to blame. Just that sharp green scent of crushed olives and wet ink. You pivot toward Athena, all innocent braids and battlefield posture. Her owl's hoot slices through the grove, calculated as a tax audit. Haven't seen your feathery mascot all night. Casual, breezy. You kick a pebble that just happens to roll toward her sandal. Her blink lasts a heartbeat too long. Hephaestus needed architectural consultation. Liar. Your sandal crunches something brittle, a shattered astragal's bone from some long ago mortal game. Funny how humans thought sheep knucklebones made honest dice. You spit a fleck of moly herb under your breath, that old anti-magic trick Circe taught you during that awkward fling. The dice yawn back, no reaction. Frowning, you pace the grove's perimeter, past the relocated Hydra fountain Zeus swore was decorative. Athena's shadow stretches unnaturally toward the gaming board, like she's anchoring it there. Your heel digs into soft earth where roots should be, and hits resistance. The laughter dies in your throat. Wood, not stone, not soil. Perfectly carved beams humming beneath the grass, the same honeycomb lattice Hephaestus used in Trojan siege engines. Your mind flashes to last week's gossip, how Athena redecorated this grove after losing to Eris at checkers. You smirk. Nobody spends 6 moons shifting soil layers for aesthetics. But when you glance down, just grass, just pebbles, just shadows. Across the board, Apollo's adjusting his laurel wreath, oblivious as a mortal staring at eclipse. Your throw, sister. The dice click in Athena's palm like teeth. You lean over the board close enough to count the pips. 4, 5. Golden light catches the 3 face, and for half a breath, a ghostly 7th dot swims beneath the woodgrain. Delay of game, Hermes. Athena's sandal taps the exact spot you'd stomped. Her chitin sleeve brushes the dice, that embroidered owl's eyes suddenly lifelike. Blink. The seventh dot's gone. Apollo's humming victory. Odes already, sunlight pooling around his cheating obliviousness. Your heel grinds into the suspicious earth again. Archaeologists would later find similar buried structures near Crete, still debating whether they were granaries or ancient rave venues. The dice fly. Apollo cheers. Athena's smile cuts sharper than her spear. And beneath your feet, something shifts. You crouch to retie your sandal, fingers brushing cool wood beams disguised as dirt. Later eras would call this forced perspective. You call it rigged Olympus bullsh. Problem, brother. Athena's shadow falls over you, her chitin hem stained with something suspiciously nectar-like, just admiring the landscaping. You rise, brushing non-existent dust off your knees. Funny, last week, this spot had a perfectly good boulder. Her shrug could frost the Nile. Change fosters growth. Behind her, an owl feather drifts into Apollo's wine, dissolves without a ripple. You pocket a wood shard from the gaming board's edge. Maybe Dionysus, Hydra Punch, has pickled your instincts. Then again, as god of merchants and thieves, your gut's better calibrated than Apollo's lyre. The next time Athena rolls, you don't watch the dice. You watch the roots and catch the faintest tremor, as if the entire grove just leans. Fifth face up, Athena's number. Apollo groans. Triple sixes again. Mistake. She used 3 dice. Your sandal presses harder into the humming earth, half expecting it to hum back. Monks in Tibet would later use similar weighted dice for temple games. Or so that tipsy historian at Poseidon's bar swore. You make mental note to check Athena's travel logs later. But for now, you smile. Cheat 2 ways, win once, the mortals say. Or was it lose twice? The epiphany's right there, coiled beneath your toes, like one of Ares' battlefield traps. Athena meets your gaze, all calm gray storms. The owl hoots again. Somewhere beneath your feet, the grove holds its breath. You step into the sacred grove just as Athena's elbow slips. Her nectar cup arcs through twilight air. Golden liquid spills across the gaming board. The dice dive into the puddle like eager swimmers, their carved olive wood faces drinking deep. Apollo groans about stickiness, ruining his perfect throw record. But you notice, the nectar isn't pooling right. It clings to the cubes in oily strands, too thick for ambrosia, too shiny for mortal honey. Clumsy me, Athena sighs, theatrical as a symphony conductor mid-bow. Her owl hoots once from a shadowed branch. You recall those 5th century Olympians slathering themselves in olive oil before wrestling matches. How their skin gleamed under the harsh sun. This isn't that kind of grease. This nectar has the faint tang of metal, the sharpness of lemons left to rot. Apollo reaches for the dice. They slide through his fingers twice. Slippery little bastards, he mutters, all trace of his liar's grace gone. His thumb rubs a speck off one die's face. Doesn't notice the 6-pip symbol now sits half a finger's width left of center. Historians still argue whether Greeks ever oiled gaming pieces for luck. But anyone watching this knows the truth. Hermes sniffs the air, lips twisting like he's bitten into a sour grape. Since when does nectar smell like an Athenian fish market? His winged sandal taps the earth, impatient as a hummingbird. Athena blinks, all innocence. You're imagining things, cousin. Mortal smells clinging to your travels, perhaps. She sweeps the dice up with one hand, the movement smooth as a shark gliding through ink-black water. The reek hits you then, not fish, but olives left to ferment, a scent that prickles the back of your throat. You think of that weird artifact dug up near Thessaloniki last century. A 2nd century dye crammed into a broken olive press. Archaeologists called it a ritual object. You're pretty sure someone was hiding evidence. Apollo rolls. The dice skitter across stone, spinning like drunk satyrs. One wobbles to a stop against Athena's sandal. 6. The sun god crows, already reaching for his prize, a crown woven from constellation threads, but the die's bottom face. You swear it flashes a 2. Athena's toe nudges the wood. 6 indeed, she purrs. Well played. Moonlight catches the dice now. Their surfaces glisten not wet, but reconstituted, as if the nectar rebuilt them molecule by molecule. You remember Hera's sacred grove attendants, how they'd rub olive oil into statues to preserve divine glory. This isn't preservation. This is alchemy. Hermes leans close, shoulder brushing yours. Ever notice, he whispers, how owls digest mice whole? His breath smells of stolen cinnamon. They regurgitate the bones later. Neat little pellets of leftovers. The dice clatter again. Apollo whoops, oblivious to the 5 that just flipped mid-roll. Athena's smile could cut diamond. A breeze stirs the grove. For a heartbeat, the oil-slick scent clears. You catch the aromatic ghost of the original olive tree, the one Athena spawned to win Athens eons past. Its woods still in these dice, plus something new. Something that hums near your temples like a beehive wrapped in silk. Apollo's rolling now twice, 3 times, each toss smoother than the last. The dice obey him like trained hounds. Too well. You count 6s where there should been 4s, 3s that blink into 5s. Hermes starts to protest, then freezes. Athena's fingers dance, a subtle flick. The aroma of fresh-baked bread floods the grove. The trickster god's stomach growls, distraction served warm. By the time the scents fade, the game's done. Apollo struts, chest puffed like a prize rooster, certain he's outplayed them all. Athena gathers the dice, their once sharp edges now rounded. A fine match, she says. No one checks the grove floor where oil seeps into soil. No one notices the single owl feather dissolving into the mess. Its quill bent at the same angle as a loaded die's weighted corner. You walk away with the taste of copper on your tongue. Somewhere ahead, Hera's voice slices through night, sharp as a freshly honed blade. But that's another chapter. For now, the olives rustle in agreement. The dice dry in Apollo's ignorant fist. and a single drop of corrupted nectar sinks deep, deep, deep into roots that'll one day birth trees with bark like cheaters' palms. You crouch lower behind the olive press, sour sweet pulp clinging to your sandals as moonlight bleeds through the grove. Athena's dice gleam like animal teeth on the worn stone board. Hermes leans in, fingers twitching toward the cube Apollo just tossed. But then a shadow ripples across the pips. Not a cloud, not a branch. Feathers. You freeze mid-breath as the owl plunges, not at the dice, but through them. Its talons pass like smoke through the carved olive wood. For a heartbeat, the number 3 face flickers, shifts, settles as a 5. Apollo's victory cry dies in his throat. He blinks, rubs his sun-charmed eyes. But the altered roll already pulses with false truth. The owl perches in the tree, above innocent as a paperweight. You remember those silver Athenian coins buried in your pocket earlier, each stamped with that same bird's unblinking stare. Funny how civilizations mint their spies right into the currency. Double or nothing, Hermes insists, swirling his cup of resin wine, which, let's be honest, smells like a pine tree's bad decisions. His sandal taps the exact rhythm used by Delphic priests to signal oracles. Historians still argue whether sacred groves were used for games of chance or solemn rituals, but tonight, definitely chance. With cheating, Apollo leans back, all golden nonchalance. Your throw reeks of mortal doubt, Hermes. I'll allow it. The lyre at his hip hums, a low C-sharp that vibrates your molars. Athena says nothing. Of course she says nothing. Her owl preens. You spot it now, the way its shadow stretches 6 extra claws when moonlight hits just right. They brush the dice whenever backs turn. Clever girl, even Herodotus missed this trick, though he did write about Libyan tribes using owl feathers in gambling charms. Rookie move. Feathers are just the distraction. It's the shadows that do the real work. Another toss. Hermes' knuckles whiten as the dice bounce. The owl's wings twitch, a barely there flutter that steers 1 cube into a wobble. 5 and 4 become God's help us, snake eyes. Apollo's lyre screeches. Impossible, he hisses. Improbable, Athena corrects, thumb tracing the rim of her untouched cup. Not impossible. Basic statistics. Hermes isn't buying it. He slithers around the board like a man checking for trapdoors, which, fair. You've seen amphoras with fewer hidden compartments. His caduceus glows faintly, probing the air for spells. But Athena's cheat doesn't smell like magic. It smells like olives, like wood sap, like the accidental honey spill 2 throws ago that still glues your elbow to the press. The owl hoots, just a hoot, but the 3rd die still spinning tilts, falls, silence. Apollo's nostrils flare solar flares. That's not, I counted 9 pips. 6 pips wink up at him. You glance at Athena. Her lips don't move, but the owl's beak parts. Skyward, a silent laugh, her laugh. And there, in the dirt by your toe, a single feather melts into shadow. The real trap wasn't altering the dice, it was letting them think they'd spotted the trick. Classic misdirection. You wonder if Houdini borrowed that move during his Budapest years, though his contracts strictly forbidden avian assistance. The debate erupts. Hermes thumps the table. Apollo invokes Pythagorean number theory. Dice bounce. Wine spills. Through it all, Athena watches. Waits. Only when they demand she defend herself does she stand, olive oil scent thickening like courtroom perfume. You assume the board's the only battlefield. Her helm materializes, not on her head, but hovering above the owl. Wisdom fights sideways. Apollo freezes mid-rant, eyes narrowing at the bird. Too late, the next gust swirls dried leaves into a miniature tornado over the dice. And when it clears, the board's empty, the owl's gone. And Athena, she's already halfway to the Acropolis, humming a tune that'll later become the opening chord of Beethoven's Fifth. Fitting. 3 short notes. 1 long. Victory in Morse code. You linger as Hermes kicks the stone slab, cursing in 4 dead languages. Funny thing, one of his sandals now sports a tiny feather between the straps. It pulses once, darkens, dissolves. You make a mental note. Never play strip poker with a goddess of strategy. The house always wins. Always. Moonlight fades. Somewhere in the grove, an owl shrieks or maybe laughs. Hard to tell with divine poultry. You pocket a leftover die, its edges still warm from Apollo's fury. The pip arrangement feels odd, lopsided, but when you squint, the numbers align. Perfect. Fair, for now. You're leaning in to watch Athena's dice settle 3 pips up, just enough to beat Hermes' last throw when the olive leaves begin to rattle. Not the gentle shiver of a Mediterranean breeze. Mind you, the kind of full-bodied tremor that makes wine slosh over the rim of your goblet. Somewhere beyond the grove, iron-shod footsteps crush time and granite with equal disregard. Even Apollo's lyre strings hum a warning note. Ares doesn't arrive, he detonates. The war god's chariot plows through a centuries-old stone wall like it's parchment, sending shards of limestone raining into the nectar bowl. Historians love debating whether Spartan generals modeled their siege engines after his infamous chariot. But trust me, when those axle spokes carve furrows in sacred soil, academic quibbles feel distant. Athena's dice leap from the table, scattering across trampled grass like rabbits fleeing hounds. One lodges in the crook of a root, its crucial 4-pip face pressed flush against the earth. You glimpse Athena's throat move, a swallow her divine composure can't quite mask. Cousin, Ares booms, his voice the grating screech of a bronze blade dragged across shield rims. He vaults down, armor clanking with the discordant melody of a blacksmith's dropped tools. You feast on figs and gamble while Troy's embers still glow. The fates mock us with peace. Apollo's already rolling his eyes. Mortals invented 13 words for drama king. But the gods only needed 1 Ares. Hermes, ever the diplomat, snatches up the nearest die and tosses it playfully. Join us, then. Athena's teaching us anew. His grin widens. Intricate game. Here's a fun fact. They don't carve into temple frescoes. Ancient Cretans loaded dice with lead plugs, historical cheat codes tucked into hollowed bone. Athena's fingers twitch toward her thigh, where her chitin hides a certain ivory tool for adjusting odds. But Ares is already snatching the dice from Hermes, his battle-scarred hands dwarfing the delicate cubes. You tally points like merchants, he sneers, crushing olive wood between palms that of snapped chariot shafts. The dice creak. You swear you hear wooden screams. Athena's expression goes taut as a bowstring. Crack, splinters erupt, but instead of falling, they hover. Ares freezes, brow furrowed. The shards orbit his fist like a miniature asteroid belt, glinting with something unnatural. Golden resin leaks from the wood's core, a honey-thick substance that reeks of divinity and dank cellars. Ambrosia-sap, Hermes murmurs, leaning close. That only grows in Hephaestus' forge vaults. Athena finishes too quickly. The others turn, even Apollo's lyre stills. Awkward. You've seen that resin before, dripping from the perfectly normal oak branch Hera, carried last summer solstice. Every god has a vice, but smuggling Hephaestus, experimental botanicals, that's the Olympian equivalent of stealing your kid brother's science project. Ares' nostrils flare. The man can smell weakness through 6 layers of mithril armor. He prods a sap globule with his dagger, plotting another virgin birth prank Athena. He growls. Or just oiling your dice. Hermes inhales sharply. Mortal gamers take note. Never accuse wisdom herself of sticky fingers without proof. Athena's owl hoots once from the shadows. Ares' torch sputters. 3 things happen fast. 1, the ambrosia-sap ignites with a whoop, painting everyone's faces hellfire-orange. 2, that cleverly hidden 4-pip die bursts into flames. Because of course, flammable dice were a fantastic idea. 3, Athena does the wisest thing she's done all night. She blames Ares. You've ruined Hephaestus' peace offering, she snaps, jabbing a finger at his smoldering vambrace. That resin was meant to seal Athres' fissures. Now look. A master stroke redirecting Ares' rage toward ancient tectonic dramas. The war god roars, stomping the flames and splattering molten sap across the game board. Apollo yelps, cradling his precious lyre. Hermes mutters a word that get mortals struck by lightning, and you're watching Athena's remaining dice roll, inexorably toward the fisher Ares. Tantrum just widened. They clatter into the abyss, taking her airtight alibi with them. Funny thing about Olympian secrets, they're like wine stains on a white chitin. The harder you scrub, the more they spread. Athena's gazing into that crack with the quiet panic of someone calculating how long it'll take Hephaestus to notice his missing stash. Above, an owl swoops, whether to help or witness the downfall. Even the fates might not agree. Ares bellows about honorable combat, whatever that means in a pantheon built on betrayal and creative paternity suits. Apollo plucks a mocking tune about fools and flammable games. Hermes, ever the opportunist, is already taking bets on which god the ambrosia smoke will intoxicate first. And you're edging toward the fissure, because if one of those dice survived the fall, well, let's just say Athena isn't the only one who appreciates a backup plan. The smell of scorched olive wood mixes with leaking divinity, a scent thicker than Athenian bureaucracy. Somewhere below, a die clatters against stone. You reach, you crouch low beneath an olive tree older than written language, its gnarled roots cradling dice carved from its own wood. Moonlight slices through the leaves like divine stage lighting, just enough to see 3 ivory cubes on the cracked earth. But this isn't your grandmother's backgammon night. Hermes goes first, which should have been your first warning. The god of thieves tosses his dice with a flourish that makes your teeth hum. They clatter across a mosaic of pebbles, except those aren't pebbles. You squint, each stone bears tiny etchings, a habit Hermes stole from Mesopotamian traders who tracked debts on river rocks. Historians still argue whether those marked stones were accounting tools or the world's first board game pieces. Either way, bad news when a trickster god starts counting avocratus pebbles instead of actual pips. 6, Hermes chirps, though you swear one die shows a 7. Apollo's lyre twitches in protest, its strings vibrating like a tuning fork struck by pure annoyance. The music god's dice roll next, or try to. His golden fingertips brush a cube, and suddenly it's humming the Lydian mode at 300 vibrations per second. The die shudders, rolls, and settles into a perfect harmonic convergence. You've heard of loaded dice. Apollo's out here using acoustic physics. Blame it on Pythagoras, that ancient number-obsessed hippie who literally wrote the book on musical mathematics. Your sweat beads like Spartan olive oil at a wrestling match. Athena's turn. She doesn't roll, she places. One die cupped in her palm like a sparrow's egg, the other 2 tumbling in slow arcs. The hidden cube presses into her lifeline, where a freshly carved owl glyph winks up at her. Clever girl. Clever cheat. Ares chooses that moment to sneeze, because war gods have impeccable timing and terrible allergies. The board upends, ivory cubes soaring like Icarus on a bad day. Hermes, counterfeit pebbles scatter into the grass, already sprouting into tiny quartz flowers. Apollo's humming die sticks to a tree trunk, still vibratoing like a stuck cicada. You freeze. Athena's palm stays closed. The owl glyph burns through her skin, casting bird-shaped shadows across the grove. 23 seconds of silence. That's how long it takes for immortals to notice a rigged game, slightly longer than it took Helen of Troy to accidentally drop that golden apple. Reroll. Apollo thunders, sunlight blazing through his nostrils. Smart, angry, exactly how Athena wanted him. Her fingers uncurl, empty, the telltale die. Gone, or more precisely, never there. You glance down. A single olive leaf rests in your lap, its veins spelling out ancient Greek for nice try. Above, an owl hoots the first four notes of Mozart's Dice Symphony. Historians hate that little fact, too weird for textbooks. But 3 European music boxes from the 1700s still play that exact melody when wound with owl feathers. Apollo's dice burst into flame because gods hate losing more than mortals hate tax season. Hermes starts counting pebbles again, this time using Pythagorean numerology. Athena leans back, plucking an olive with a satisfaction usually reserved for warlords and cats. You pocket the leaf. Some lessons hide in burnt dice and sprouting stones. Others cling to your fingers like the resin scent of a goddess. Best bad idea. The air tastes like burnt honey as Apollo steps forward, sunfire coiling around his fingertips like serpents made of light. You feel the olive wood dice grow warm in your palm, too warm before they leap from your grip, as if summoned. Suspended in a cage of solar rays, their surfaces begin to sweat beads of golden resin. A groan ripples through the sacred grove as the dice warp, their once smooth edges bubbling like wax on a priest's altar candle. Let's see what truths your trinkets swallow, Apollo murmurs, voice smooth as lyre strings tightened to the point of snapping. The other gods lean in, Hephaestus squinting through fingers raised half in awe, half in horror. You smell it before you see it, charred earth and something sharper, like wine left to sour in a bronze cup. The dice split open with a sound akin to cracking knuckles, revealing shimmering honeycomb pockets where starlight pulses like trapped fireflies. Those aren't growth rings, Hermes breathes, nosy as ever, materializing at your elbow. He flicks a finger toward the glowing lattice. You hollowed them out, stuffed them with stolen night. You open your mouth to argue something about cosmic balance, maybe, but Apollo silences you with a glare that peels back layers. The honeycomb walls tremble, then shatter into prismatic dust. Out spill the stolen things. A sliver of the Milky Way, 3 whispers from Delphi's fading oracle, and damningly, a curl of your own owl's feather, ink black with guilt. Apollo's sunbeam prods the feather, now crumbled to ash. Mortals think cheating began with weighted dice in Alexandria's gambling dens. He says, voice colder than a Spartan winter. Right, because nothing says fair play like dissolving a friend's crafts into cosmic confetti. You almost laugh, almost, until Hera plucks a strand of starlight from the air. It hums between her fingers, a sound that vibrates your molars. An Egyptian king once tried this, she muses, twisting the light into a knife-sharp helix. Filled his dice with ground lapis to sway the fates. His own wife fed him to crocodiles for it. Real subtle, Hera. Message received. You glance at the olive trees, their branches heavy with fruit that suddenly resembles 1,000 judging eyes. Ares snorts, lounging against a tree he probably plans to burn later. Should used lead weights. Silent, reliable. You resist the urge to point out that silent and reliable, also describes his strategic retreats at Troy. Instead, you watch as Artemis parts the crowd, silver bow slung across her back, like a punchline waiting to happen. She prods the ruined dice with one sandaled foot. Clever, she allows, though her tone suggests she'd call rabies clever if it bit her enemies. But hollow cores change the role. Even mortals know this. Remember the bread games of Pompeii? Ah yes, that infamous scandal where bakers rigged gambling loaves with limestone pellets. Classy. You nod, mute apology caught in your throat like a fishbone. Apollo's not done. With a flick of his wrist, he sends sunfire skating across the grove, igniting a row of amphorae. The flames twist into something new, a luminous mirror reflecting your face back in grotesque magnification. Every twitch, every shadowed thought made mercilessly clear. It's like standing in a Smithfield meat market window, everything hung up for inspection. Defend yourself, he says, and oh, it's almost a request. But here's the thing about wisdom. It's a slippery little eel. You straighten, channeling every Athenian general who ever argued that sacking a city was really an act of charity. The game was flawed from its first breath, you begin. The sky rumbles, Zeus rearranging clouds into a skeptical eyebrow. What's the worth of victory if it hinges on blind luck? Mankind will worship you for music and prophecies, brother, but strategy, cunning, those are my gifts. I merely highlighted the imbalance. Dionysus chokes on his wine. Highlighted, sure. Like Medea, highlighted her divorce terms. The crowd titters, nervous energy crackling through the grove. Hephaestus crouches to examine the dice fragments. Thin walls, he mutters, prodding the charred remains. Collapsed under their own deception. A structural parable, really. His forge-scarred fingers tremble slightly, whether from anger or admiration. You can't tell. Apollo steps closer, heat radiating off him in waves. You catch the scent of burning rosemary, the same herb Cretan priests used to purge impurities. Or roast lamb. Hard to tell with sun gods and the stolen starlight. He asks, golden glare narrowing. Here we go. You palm an olive pit from the soil, let its ridges bite into your skin. An experiment. Mortal bones crumble, but stars. Their memories linger, I thought. Perhaps their whispers could teach us new rules. Artemis barks a laugh. New rules. Bold words from someone who dips dice in nectar, like a toddler sneaking honey cakes. She's not wrong, but you'd never admit it. The mirror flames swell, pushing everyone back, save you and Apollo. Reflections warp, until you're staring at 100 twisted versions of this moment. Some where he incinerates you on the spot. Others where you shatter the mirror with a well-aimed olive pit, but in the loudest reflection, the one that smells like lightning and bad decisions, you see it. A flicker of curiosity beneath Apollo's wrath. He leans in close enough that his breath singes your eyelashes. You'd rewrite the fates themselves, wouldn't you? And there, slick as owl feathers on wet stone, you find your opening. Not rewrite, you whisper. Translate. The fates speak in riddles, I merely clarified the dialect. Silence. Then, 10,000 dice, Hera declares, rising with the finality of a tomb seal. Carved without tricks, without translations. The gods erupt, Hermes already taking bets on your completion time. Dionysus, composing a ballad titled Ode to a trash-talking owl. Apollo watches you, unreadable, as his flames devour the last dice fragment. But as the crowd disperses, half laughing, half seething, you spot him pocket a charred sliver of star-filled oak, honeycomb patterns, you note, still faintly visible in the ash. The loom emerges grain by grain, translucent threads, coalescing from the charged air like spider silk in reverse. You run your fingers through the half-formed warp, each strand vibrating with a different shade of truth. From the corner of your eye, you see Ares rolling his, still intact dice along his forearm. Their weighty clacks punctuate the silence. Knucklebones weren't enough for you, were they? You mutter, plucking a thread of silvery rationale. Hera's verdict hangs overhead. 10,000 fair dice. A sentence as tedious as Sisyphus, resume. But punishment is just poorly packaged pedagogy, right? You weave faster. Consider the Trojan horse, you begin. The gods go still, always suckers for a classic. A cheat code carved in pine. The Greeks didn't win through strength, they won because Athena, taught them strategic innovation. Artemis snorts. Innovation, like poisoning every river from here to Thebes. Adaptation, you correct, threading a crimson strand of shame through the loom. It darkens on contact. You chastise me for weighted dice, but what of Egypt's Senate players? They marked boards with honey to invite favorable moves from gods. Historians still argue whether sticky tiles count as divine intervention or sticky fingers. Dionysus perks up, swirling wine that smells suspiciously like vinegar today. Speaking of fermented grapes, remember the Manon board game where they used octopus ink as dice paint? Players hallucinated winning streaks for weeks. You nod, seizing the tangent. Exactly. Mortals have always bent rules. I merely accelerated their education. The loom shimmers, showing hoplites debating battle tactics over loaded astragali. Apollo's solar glare dims a fraction. He's listening. Hephaestus limps closer, squinting at your creation. Your warp's uneven. Third thread from the left, sloppy tension. He's right. The strand glitches, showing a flash of your owl hoarding marked dice in its nest. You cough, yanking the flawed thread. Cheap ploy, Hera snaps. But her fingers twitch, reminiscent of Cretan weavers caught between royal commissions and personal vendettas. You remember the whispers, how she once unraveled an entire tapestry to save Zeus. Latest embarrassment from public view. Ares hurls his dice at the loom. They freeze midair, suspended by your will. Hollow arguments, he growls. Like Persian battle plans, written on parchment made from donkey skin, all bray, no bite. You twitch a finger. The dice disintegrate into pomegranate seeds. Some truths taste better sweetened. And what bites deeper? Honest defeat or a lesson carved in consequences. The seeds sprout into miniature olive trees, branches heavy with dice-shaped fruit. Apollo finally speaks, voice softer now. You gutted chance itself, stuffed it with stardust and bird feathers. There it is, the crack in his anger. You pluck a gold thread from the fading sunbeam at his feet. The first oracle at Delphi spoke in riddles because unvarnished truth blinds. I shrouded mine in mystery. A kinder cut. The thread braids itself into the loom, glowing like Alexander's rumored mechanical oracle. That bronze wonder-some claim could predict eclipses using gears forged in a god's workshop. Hestia, silent until now, stokes the central hearth fire. An Athenian general once told me cheaters never prosper. Pheidippides also ran himself to death, delivering news of victory. You counter. Shall we venerate his life choices? The fire pops, scattering embers that transform into sparrows mid-flight, each carrying a minuscule die in its beak. Hermes chuckles, scribbling something that'll likely become tomorrow's gossip scrolls. Artemis fingers her bowstring. You're worse than the Carthaginians with their salted dice. At least their deceit had flavor. The insult stings, but the loom's nearly complete. You tug the final thread taut, revealing a tapestry where gods and mortals play dice under an olive tree. Each roll shifts the branch's shadows, altering the board. No fixed rules, only evolving strategies. Isn't that how Olympus won the Titanomachy? Zeus, cloud-brow furrows. Thunder mutters, half-hearted. Hephaestus traces the woven scene. This almost makes sense. His calloused thumb lingers on a mortal figure, offering ambrosia to a die. Almost. Apollo turns from the loom, but not before you catch him, studying the spectral dice. They mimic his lyre's harmonics, a detail your shuttle slipped in during his lecture on musical honesty. Hera strides forward, her peplos scattering loom dust like breadcrumbs. 10,000, she repeats. But when her gaze meets yours, something shifts, a spark older than the Lelantine war treaties buried under Euboean soil. You recognize it. The grudging awe of a fellow strategist who'd have done worse for better reasons. As the assembly disperses, Hecate's moonfire ignites the tapestry's edge. It burns without consuming, frozen flames framing your flawed masterpiece. Should have used a tighter weave, you tell the smoke. It coils into the shape of an owl, winking as it dissolves. Somewhere below, mortals roll stolen fragments of divine games. Their bones hum with the old urge to tilt odds, and the newer, sharper hunger to justify the tilt. You smile, breath-stirring ash that tastes suspiciously like redemption. Hera's fingers brush the finished tapestry, ash drifting from her touch like time-lost confetti. You watch a party-colored thread unravel itself to form her sentence in midair. 10,000 dice, carved fair. Before the next lunar eclipse, the words hover glowing faintly as the curses scribbled on Babylonian curse tablets buried under the Ishtar gate. A generous timeline, you remark, plucking a loose feather from your sleeve. It dissolves into the scent of burnt myrrh, a parlor trick even Hephaestus, automatons mastered back, when Crete's bronze giants still guarded their treasure vaults. She doesn't smile. Not quite. But her peplos ripples, a telltale shimmer matching the gilt edges of Macedonian peace treaties. You remember the rumors, how she once brokered a month-long ceasefire during the Lelantine War, just to test a new pomegranate wine recipe. History never records the important stuff. Dionysus materializes beside you, offering a goblet that bubbles like a swamp's last breath. To creative sentencing, the wine tastes like pickled laurel leaves and regret. You glance at him. He shrugs. Stole it from Ares' rehab stash. Apollo lingers by the dwindling hearth, plucking discordant notes from his lyre. Each chord makes your nearly finished dice prototypes rattle in their cedar box. They'll be balanced, you say, too quickly. Like Orion's constellation, he counters. A low blow. Everyone knows the hunters' stars still wobble from that ill-advised bet with Artemis. You're saved by Hermes swooping in with a ledger. Item 1, he chirps. Procurement, 12 royal cubits of sacred olive wood. Item 2, owl attack-related property damage during harvest. Please initial here denying responsibility. You scrawl something resembling a lightning bolt. Hermes squints. I'll tell Zeus it's an abstract apology. The work begins at dawn. You're elbows deep in wood shavings when a familiar shadow blankets your workstation. Hera says nothing, just watches you carve sigils into die number 42. Her silence weighs more than the gypsum blocks they used to seal Minoan tomb doors. Millennia from now, you muse, blowing sawdust off the cube. Mortals will dig up flawed dice and call them ritual objects. Write thesis papers about the spiritual significance of uneven edges. Better than the alternative. She flicks a speck from her shoulder. Archaeologists once mistook Alexander's beard, comb for a sacrificial dagger. Made a whole documentary. You huff a laugh before catching yourself. The die in your hand trembles. Its 6-spot carved too deep. Hera plucks it from your grip. For a heartbeat, her thumb rubs the flawed face. Then, with a sigh older than the petrified echoes in Delphi's caves, she drops it into her perfume pouch. 9,999 to go. As she leaves, a sunbeam catches her diadem, casting owl-shaped shadows across your workspace. You wait until her footsteps fade before whispering, still using the old Rhodian measuring standard, aren't you? The next die's dimensions shift imperceptibly. Let historians centuries hence debate whether those extra microns were tools of fairness or a different flavor of trickery. Hephaestus inspects die number 500 at sundown. Acceptable, he grunts, if you ignore the cedar allergy incident. His finger traces a whorl in the wood. The Library of Alexandria had scrolls on dice equilibration, burned naturally. Naturally, you echo, thinking of Sappho's lost poems and how many could have been saved with a well-timed rain dance. The die heats in your palm, a silent apology to no one. somewhere between die 1200 and 1300. Eris drops by to suggest engraving hidden apple motifs. For educational purposes, she insists, carving a tiny fruit into the forespot. You let her, the fates will sort it out later. By die 8000, your hands move without command, each flick of the blade as rhythmic as the chants from Eleusinian mystery rites. Mortals would kill for this kind of muscle memory. Literally, you've seen the Athenian crime scrolls. When the final die rolls off your workbench, it lands at Hera's feet. She crouches, for once unbothered by mortal dust on her hem. The die spins, numbers blurring into a singular glow. Adequate, she declares, but as she pockets it, moonlight reveals the ghost of a 17-sided die etched beneath the surface. A mathematician's inside joke. Her parting glance holds the warmth of a forge's last ember, the kind that reignites entire rebellions. If you blow just right, you file that knowledge between Atlantean subway maps and Dionysus' actual birth year in your mental archives. As the owls carry your 10,000 atonements to their fates, you whisper a thank you to the original olive tree. Its roots hum back, a melody only cheaters and queens truly understand. You shuffle through sun-baked dirt, where 4 crooked olive trees claw at the sky, their branches twisted like arthritic fingers mid-snap. These aren't the glossy groves from Hera's wedding vase murals. Oh no, Athena's cheater dice, burrowed here after the scandal, sprouting wood that warps itself into perpetual shrugs. Pluck one of those lumpy olives and bite down if you fancy mouthfuls of vinegar and regret. Mortals pocket the fallen fruits without thinking. Just like that time you absent-mindedly swiped cafeteria Jell-O. Next thing you know, you're challenging the blacksmith's apprentice to knucklebones behind the agora. Your dice feel heavier than they should, weighted with 30 centuries of divine side-eye. Ever roll triple ones and swear the pips blinked at you? Thank these trees. Farmers curse the gnarled trunks that ruin their plow lines. The one Byzantium merchant's journal boasts about fermenting the bitter fruit into olives so sharp they could degrease a minotaur. Historians still argue whether that's a metaphor for Athenian politics. You kneel to examine the bark. Its grooves mimic Athena's original dice markings. Touch it and your thumbnail fills with splinters that sting like stolen luck. The worst part, humans keep replicating the flaw. Egyptian Senate boards buried with crooked pawns. Mesopotamian bone dice, unearthed near Nineveh, lopsided enough to make a sober scribe hiccup accusations. Even Roman soldiers carved imbricated ivories that rolled like drunken badgers. You know that itch between your shoulder blades when you play Parcheesi with your sketchy uncle. That's Athena's legacy, tap dancing down your spine. A breeze rattles the branches, something between a laugh and a raspberry. Above you, an owl pellet plops onto a rock, disgorging tiny bronze dice. They gleam too perfectly until you notice the pips are just painted on. Modern casinos have nothing on Olympus. You pocket one out of spite. Its edges dig into your thigh like a whispered, "I told you so." Distant laughter trickles from the grove, but when you turn, there's just wind combing through bitter leaves. Somewhere, a philosopher king drafts laws against loaded dice. Elsewhere, a child stacks olive pits into towers that topple westward every time. The trees creak, a chorus of old bones settling. You walk faster. The dice in your pocket grows warm. It never ends, this game of countercheats. Every courtier's discreet palm turn, every back alley dice shave, every slot machine's coy algorithms, they're all leaves on the same twisted tree. Your fingers brush the stolen die, still buzzing with the ghost of a goddess who couldn't lose graciously. The path ahead bends left. You never see the root that snags your sandal. But hey, neither did Apollo. You trudge uphill, sandals crusted with dirt that crumbles like decade-old papyrus. That stolen die burns colder now, nestled against your hip like a frostbitten secret. The owl hoot came from nowhere, and everywhere, 3 nights back, you followed it past Delphi's cracked tripods and a Spartan gymnasium still reeking of goat and lentil smoothies. Now Zeus's throne looms, a marble monstrosity propped up by thunderhead clouds and unresolved daddy issues. Beneath it, where the stone meets shadow, the air warps like a mirage over Egyptian sand. Your fingers brush cold ivory, not stone, hidden by a glamour weaker than Dionysus's vow to quit wine. A crawl space. Of course, since when do battle goddesses stash contraband in obvious places? You squeeze through, tunic snagging on what feels suspiciously like eagle talon scratches. The chamber smells of petrified lightning and librarian's glue. Shelves sag under scrolls labeled "Unwise Bets Fall," XII, and "How to Lose a War in 7 Days." But there, on a pedestal veiled by spider silk, gleam 6 ivory dice. These ain't the olive wood relics from the grove. These look carved from moonlight and migraine, each face inlaid with lapis lazuli numbers. You lean closer, the pips swirl like miniature galaxies. Touch one, and your fillings hum. Historians love gushing about the library of Alexandria's fire. But this secret stash makes those lost scrolls look like toddler doodles. The smallest die rolls toward your pinky, no hands touching it, landing on a symbol that matches Minoan plumbing blueprints. You blink. Now it shows a smiling owl. Ancients used dice for divination, but Athena's playing 4D chess here. Crouching, you spot a terracotta bowl beneath the pedestal, filled with amber liquid. It reeks of oversteeped ooze and regret. Wavy lines suggest something fermented. Remember Hera's special honey cakes that made Pan hallucinate tax audits. Same energy. The dust here has dust, layered like a baklava of abandonment. Your knee pops as you stand, a sound so loud Hephaestus probably high-fives himself somewhere. That's when you see it etched into the wall behind the dice. A cluster of Olympian graffiti. Hermes' cheeky stick figure stealing Apollo's lyre. Ares' attempt at cursive "Athena sucks," misspelled with an extra X. And there, tiny but precise, a drawing of the olive grove dice, crossed out by 2 lightning bolts, Zeus's handwriting. Real subtle, chief. The ivory cubes tremble not from your breath, but something older, like tectonic plates, shifting grudges. You pick one up. It's lighter than expected, colder than a nymph's side-eye. The lapis numbers bleed blue onto your palm. Rookie mistake. Should worn gloves. But hey, if Carter messed up King Tut's tomb, you're allowed this. Muffled screeches echo above, Zeus's eagles throwing shade or sharing lunch. Doesn't matter. This die's edges aren't right. 12 faces, no 14. Your eyes water trying to count. One side definitely sports a tiny engraving of the Trojan horse. Archaeology won't believe this. Or will they? Back in the 70s, some Cologne professor claimed to find a multi-dimensional die in a Mycenaean midden heap. Colleagues laughed till his replica cursed their bingo nights. You pocket the Trojan horse die because humanity never learns. The remaining 5 rearrange themselves into a pyramid. A hollow click. Then the pedestal sinks into the floor, taking the shelf of shameful scrolls with it. Classic Athena exit strategy. Dust mushrooms upward. You sneeze hard enough to startle a chalice off its hook. The chamber darkens, except for the die in your fist. It glows now soft and bioluminescent, like firefly entitlement. Shadows creep across the walls, forming a familiar owl-shaped smudge. Clever girl. Even her failsafes have failsafes. Outside, thunder gargles. Time to go. You army crawl backward, forehead kissing every hidden lintel, and emerge into hazy daylight. The throne's shadow stretches toward Athens like an accusatory finger. Your stolen loot pulses in rhythm with something. Maybe your own heartbeat. Maybe the slow bleed of luck from a certain goddess's ledger. Downhill, a shepherd boy rolls wooden dice behind his flock. They keep landing on snake eyes. His dog howls. The trees here grow straight for now. But that ivory weight in your pocket whispers possibilities. Found a 20-sided die in a Thebes marketplace once, crude thing, sold as a luck chameleon. This is the granddaddy of D20s. Scholars will squabble over your story. The Crete Archaeological Museum still displays a goblet they swear is a proto-dice tower, though it looks suspiciously like a badly repaired flower vase. Academic egos, man, but you know better. Every game shop's shelf, every blackjack table's shine, every app shuffling digital decks, their footnotes to Athena's first cheat. The path ahead winds past a roadside shrine where coins glint in offering bowls, half show Athena's profile, owl included. You flip your die. It lands on the Trojan horse natch as 3 old women emerge from the shrine. They squint at your hands, click their tongues in unison, and shuffle away. The fates, just local grannies judging your life choices. Still, you walk faster. By nightfall, the die's glow outlines every olive pit on the road. Your canteen's empty, your sandals fraying. The tavern ahead buzzes with dice games and lyre music. You hesitate, then chuck the ivory into a fig seller's cart. Let some hungry kid find it. The second it leaves your hand, an owl screeches. The tavern falls silent. Then laughter, always laughter. You glance back. The fig seller's chewing on something blue. You trudge past Athena's grove as twilight bleeds into the kind of sticky night even cicadas find oppressive. The air smells of bruised olives, and is that burnt honey, probably leftover from Apollo's tantrum 3 millennia back. His musical meltdowns weren't just metaphorical. Your sandal snags on a gnarled root, one of those crooked trees mortals still puzzle over in Mediterranean orchards. Ever wonder why olive oil tastes faintly of betrayal? Thank this exact patch of dirt. A weight shifts in your pocket. Not coins, they jingle. Something wooden, asymmetrical. You pull out 6 dice pocked with symbols older than the Colosseum's first bloodstain. Fun fact: Roman emperors bet entire villas on a single roll. Caligula once lost 7 litter bearers to a lucky throw, then confiscated them back at swordpoint. The dice in your palm feel warmer than they should. Or maybe that's just your sweat. One side glints, not gold leaf, but real sunlight trapped inside. Athena's final backup plan. You spin a die on your thumbnail like a hipster fidgeting with a vintage Zippo. Ivy curls around your ankle. Down, girl. Not every mortal needs entrapping today. That's when you notice the pits. Each carved dot isn't a mere indentation. It's a tunnel winding through olive wood denser than diamond. Peer close enough, and yep, a universe spins inside every pip. One shows Hera's verdict trial. Another winks with starlight stolen during the first game. Historians still argue whether Athena meant to get caught, divine pedagogy, or just sloppy cheating. The answer's in the honeycomb grain. Probably. Your thumb brushes the owl glyph. A feather drifts down, charcoal gray, and smelling of library dust. Don't inhale too deep unless you want the Battle of Marathon looping in your synapses for weeks. Remember those Mesopotamian gambling talismans carved from crocodile teeth. This makes those look like kindergarten beadwork. The die trembles not in fear, but rhythm, like a phone set to vibrate by some prankster god's group chat. Shadows pool at your feet. Not ordinary darkness, the clingy sort that leaves damp patches on your tunic. From here, the grove looks less like a sacred site and more like a board game abandoned mid-play. Moonlight etches numerals on tree bark. A faint clatter rolls through the underbrush. You freeze. 6 ivory cubes materialize in the dust, pristine, unsullied by mortal hands. Athena's secret second set. Toss them, and you'll rewrite yesterday's weather. Maybe resurrect that ludist you liked from Pompeii. But your palms stay clenched around the originals, warmer now, almost pulsing. Oddly specific fact: olive wood absorbs deceit like Bordeaux stains linen. These dice have soaked in it for eons. A nightjar calls. Or maybe Hermes doing his amateur bird call bit again. Either way, The message is clear. Stop procrastinating. You roll. The dice bounce and hang midair. Of course, trickles of resin ooze from nearby bark, forming tiny hourglasses of doom. Classic Olympian melodrama. The cubes spin like satellites, aligning pips into constellations even NASA couldn't map. One die settles on the owl, another balances precariously on edge. The third dissolves into fireflies. Cheaters guarantee every outcome hurts twice. First the gamble, then the truth squirming in your gut like a half-digested eel. That bitter olive taste floods your mouth again. You glance down. The remaining dice have burrowed into your palm, leaving marks that glow faintly blue. Xenia, the ancient Greek laws of hospitality, required hosts to offer dice games after dinner and guests to lose gracefully. But you're neither guest nor host here. Just another sucker holding loaded history. A branch cracks, not wind, something with too many joints. Best not turn around. Athena's lessons come steep, and you've already touched the merchandise. Your pocket feels heavier. The remaining dice whisper in triple harmony: Apollo's tenor, Hermes' chuckle, Athena's "I told you so." You pocket the ivory set too. Let Zeus sort them out. The grove exhales, and suddenly you're 10 paces downhill where the grass grows straight. Your hands smell of lightning strikes and pressed flowers. Some games outlive their players, and every throw was never just yours to make. The night settles around you like worn linen, thin in places, but holding that coiled tension in your shoulders. Let it unravel. Breathe in slow olive resin and scorched sugar, yes, but beneath it, rain on sun-warmed stone. The dice in your pocket have gone still, their hum softened to a mother's shush. Even gods grow tired of games, eventually. Look up. The moon isn't glaring now, just a bleached button loose on the sky's cuff. Those shadows pooling at your feet, harmless as spilt ink. Wriggle your toes. Feel the earth solid beneath you, patient as a 1,000-year-old root. The grove exhales. You mimic it. Your palm still cradles the dice marks, faint blue lines tracing lifelines not entirely yours. Let them fade. Athena's schemes, Hermes' snickers, they're just echoes now, trapped in olive sap and honey-smeared scrolls. Whatever truths you glimpsed in those wooden pips, wrap them in cobweb-soft silence. Some riddles exist to be carried, not solved. The ivory set weighs less now, almost hollow. Maybe the ghosts inside have flown, or maybe they're dozing, lulled by your breath. Either way, your steps find a rhythm even the cicadas approve of. Left, right, left, right. No roots snag you. No whispers nip at your neck. Just crickets stitching the dark with their gossip. Ahead your path, lit not by trapped sunlight or Olympian fireflies, but the ordinary glow of a world untangling itself. Your sandals whisper through grass salted with dew. That bitter olive taste, fading, replaced by the sleepy tang of chamomile. You might have passed a shrine or a fig tree, doesn't matter. Your other pocket holds a sprig of something mint, laurel. Press it lightly, Let it be just a leaf. Roll your shoulders once. The horizon blurs into watercolor, lavender shredding into peach. Dawn's an hour off, maybe 3. No nightjar calls. No dice rattling stir the air. Even Athena's grove is yawning now, its drama spent. You touch nothing, claim nothing. The wind combs your hair, warm as a hand you'll forget by noon. When you wake tomorrow, the marks will be gone. The dice, turned to kindling in some hearth, or maybe nesting in a magpie's hoard. The tale you almost lived, a smudge, a maybe, a dream where the edges don't quite meet. Close your eyes, lids heavier than they should be. Good, let them fall. No more lessons, no more layered truths, just hush, hush.